Hello everybody. So for quite a while now I've had a video idea on the back burner that I just couldn't figure out how to make work properly. It's a topic that's very close to me and that I find pretty odd and potentially interesting to somebody out there, but I didn't want to just sit in front of the camera vlog style and talk about it. That doesn't really work with my format. But as it turns out, our old friend Theophilus McPherson, or Fernandez, put out a video recently talking about that same topic. And I think that in the process of responding to his video, I'll be able to get across everything that I wanted to say on the subject as well.
One of the reasons why I'm making this video today is to help somebody to deal with a phobia. Fear.
The specific phobia I want to talk about is the one that I personally have experience with, arachnophobia. The fear of spiders. As most people know, that's one of the most common phobias. But for the benefit of anyone who isn't familiar with this on a personal level, I just want to clarify exactly what a phobia is. Theophilus characterizes it as fear, and that's true, but more specifically, it's an irrational fear. Very often the person who's experiencing it is entirely aware of the complete irrationality of the fear, but unfortunately, brains are weird, and they don't always respond to reason, and it's pretty hard to rationalize away an emotion, especially one that's so severe, in a lot of cases anyway.
How to overcome phobia. What is phobia? Fear. You fear height. You fear darkness. You fear the boogeyman.
Right, and these are good examples of irrational fears. Sure, in the cases of height and darkness, you can have very rational fears of these things. If you're at a dangerous height with no safety equipment, it's pretty rational to experience fear of it. If you're stuck in the middle of a jungle in the dark, it can be pretty rational to be afraid. I guess it may be wrong to say that the fear itself is rational, but at least you're experiencing it for some sort of justifiable reason. But what if you panic about turning the light off in your room at night? What if just the thought of climbing a stepladder is enough to put you in a cold sweat? At that point, even though you fear something that can be feared rationally, all rationality's out the window. And it's bad enough in those cases that it's having an impact on your quality of life. And if you want to fix that, you're going to have to do something about it. Now, I think Theophilus's goal here is noble, to try to help people who suffer with this issue. And I'm not here to dissuade him from doing that, or necessarily to tell him his idea is wrong. What I am here to do is talk frankly about my experiences with this issue, and what I've done over the years that has actually worked to pretty dramatically improve the situation. I should say though, if you're one of the many people in the same boat, it's not an easy process working on it. It's not an immediate process. You're not gonna suddenly not have these stupid thoughts. It's certainly not something you can instantly turn off. It's a problem that can take quite a while to solve, but it's not unsolvable.
I'm here today to encourage you of how to get rid of a phobia. Phobia is a fear, it's a torment, it's a torture.
Theophilus is not wrong here. People with relatively severe phobias probably won't be surprised by a lot of what I'm about to say here, but I'm going to describe how this thing manifested in my mind, just to give other people an idea of just how completely irrational and strange it can really get. So when I was a kid, I didn't really like spiders, but it wasn't too bad of an issue. It got worse as I got older, into my teenage years. And at its peak, when I started to realize that it was something I was going to have to deal with, it was to the point where if I saw a picture of a spider, it would cause my body to tense up so bad with fear that it was physically painful. In fact, it didn't even really feel the same as ordinary fear. It felt more like a shock or something. If I was flipping through a book and there happened to be a picture of a spider on one page, I would throw it across the room. And then following that, I'd start to feel spiders crawling all over my skin. I'd feel the need to brush them away even though I knew they weren't there. I would oftentimes avoid sitting with my feet on the floor, just because I didn't want to risk a spider crawling on me, even though wherever I was had very little chance of that happening. When I lived in an apartment in the city, high up off the street, I never once saw a spider. But even so, my brain went there. In fact, that's when it was at its worst. I would wake up some nights having nightmares about the stupid things. And worse, sometimes I would get the thought of them in my head, and I couldn't fall asleep because I felt that tingling all over me, like as if they were in my sheets. But it wasn't as simple as just that any spider or a picture of a spider would provoke a reaction. Those fat-bodied little spiders with the short legs? Sure, I wouldn't want them crawling in my house or on me, but they caused very little reaction. Those ones with the real tiny little round body and really, really long skinny legs, I think they're called daddy long legs or harvestmen, those didn't provoke a reaction either. Not even if I saw nests of them crawling all over each other, nothing. And the thing is, I think when I was a kid, someone told me that they're not real spiders, and I think maybe that was this strange sort of intrusion of rationality, where if I don't fully believe it's a spider, I just stop caring. Black widow spiders, which I think are the only severely venomous spider in my region, caused very little reaction. You might think they'd cause more reaction because they're venomous, but you're thinking too rationally. None of the responses I'm describing are rational. They're not in any way based on the fear of a real danger. And sure, if I saw a video or a picture of the particular form of spider that really bothered me, it would cause a strong reaction. And if I saw a lifelike colored drawing of it, like in a field guide, that would also cause a strong reaction. But a lot of things that clearly were designed to cause a reaction wouldn't. That big spider from the Lord of the Rings? Nothing. Any spider from a video game? Nothing. Not the slightest tingle. It's like if I subconsciously didn't think that the configuration of the ink on the paper or the pixels on the screen were actually based on the real thing, it just couldn't do anything. It was very dependent on which species of spider it was, but it was a lot more than that as well. It was the exact shape, it was the composition of the image, the length of the legs. You could take the same spider and show it with the legs splayed out from the top, and it would be terrifying. But show it from a 45-degree angle, or put the legs closer together, it radically altered the effectiveness. And in real life, with real spiders, it didn't even matter if they were alive. If I found a dead spider somewhere, it was as much of a problem as a living one. Or close, anyway. If I had to get rid of one, it didn't matter that I knew full well it wasn't going to move. Sure, I could get closer to them than I could to live spiders that might actually move towards me, but when I reached my arm closer to them, it was like my arm started to get more and more uncomfortable, like almost painful. It was like trying to shove your arm through a force field, just because the tension kept increasing. So that's my basic experience dealing with this kind of phobia. When Theophilus describes it as a torment and a torture, he's not wrong. Having that kind of reaction to common things for no reason is not sustainable. Or, well, it is sustainable, but it definitely decreases your quality of life. It makes every moment, even just browsing social media or whatever, into a potential jump scare. You know those screamers videos that used to be really popular where they'd show you something pretty innocuous but that would make you focus and then throw in the jump scare with the scary face? It was like everything in the world being that. Now, luckily enough for me, I'm speaking in the past tense. This is an issue that, for the most part, I've managed to conquer. Certainly, I still don't like having spiders in my house, but all those other really strange and random things that I was responding to so severely, I have managed to deal with that. So if you spam me with spider pictures on my Discord, I'm not going to be bothered. I'll get into what I did about it and the thought process behind those decisions as we go forward here, but first let's see what else Theophilus has to say.
I'm giving you free lessons, my friend. I'm not a therapist, but I'm a man of God. I want you to overcome keeping lights on. Turn it off. Turn the light off. Go to bed. You hear voices? It's nothing but the devil, my friend.
Okay, I don't know if I can agree with Theophilus's advice here. If you're hearing voices, that's not a phobia. That's potentially something like schizophrenia. You may want to speak to a doctor. To be fair, you may want to speak to a doctor about a phobia as well. It's possible that someone out there can help you through it. I didn't go that route. I have no experience with that. I am not trying to advise you on a course of action with any of this. I'm just talking about me. This video is all me.
The devil playing games with your mind. That's why the Bible said, let this mind be in you, which was in Christ Jesus. So if you're a person that's suffering with a phobia, I want you to take a stand. If you're trying to get to heaven, you got to move cowardness. If you're trying to get to heaven, you got to move believing. Unbelief's a sin.
And now it's just a ramble about religion. Okay, I should have seen that coming. But I'm still glad Theophilus made this video just because it gives me the excuse to talk about this. And by the way, it's kind of funny that this is the day I chose to record this, because just today I found a big old nasty spider chilling out on the floor of my office. It's almost like he knew. The spiders know. Alright, so where was I? Alright, so this issue just kept on getting worse, and I think that part of it was probably because I was living alone for quite a while. For a couple years there, like a decade ago, I wasn't getting out very much. I was going to work and stuff, but other than that, not too much. I lived downtown in the city. It just wasn't an environment that I enjoyed. I didn't really want any part of it. I was just there for work. And so most days what I would do is go to work and then come home and stay home. I was online a lot, but I was mostly just alone with my own thoughts, and at least for me, that has a tendency to start to make me jumpy. I also started occasionally to get that thing where if it's really late at night and you're tired, you start to feel like there's somebody else in the room, kind of that ghosty feeling. That was never a major thing. It's just one of those like creepy feelings that I don't usually get now because I just have other people in the house and there actually is somebody else there. So if I'm feeling like there's somebody around, it's probably one of them. But it kind of gives you an idea of the sort of mental state I was in. But anyway, there were a few things that actually helped me start to get a grip. And I suppose the first couple are things about my personality that just wouldn't let something like this continue forever. And such a severe way. For one thing, I really don't like to be an idiot if I can avoid it, and frankly, having such an irrational reaction to things made me feel kind of stupid, especially if other people got to see me having them. Like I remember one time I was with a friend trying to pick up wood for a fire, and I saw a spider in the wood pile and backed up like 12 feet, and for a little while there I just became totally useless. I still remember that now because it made me feel like a total idiot. It's things like that. I mean, that's just embarrassing. Another thing about me that I think helped is that I know that things that make me uncomfortable are not going to change, and nor should they, usually. When someone puts a spider in a YouTube video thumbnail or just in the video itself, I'm not going to piss and moan about it. When they put a picture of a spider in a book, well, it's probably there for a reason. I'm not going to ask for a trigger warning. That would be demanding that everyone else pander to my weakness. Sure, please do me a favor and don't throw spiders at my face, but I think that applies to pretty much everyone. Beyond that, you can do what you like, and if I have a problem with it, that's my problem. I think there's some sort of value in owning the problem. No matter how much I felt like I wasn't in control of it, well, neither were they. They weren't putting me through it. My brain was. So if something was going to change, it's not going to be the whole world. It's going to be my brain. So just having those sort of mental defaults helped. As for the actual steps, I think the first major breakthrough came when I saw the GIF that I'm about to show you. Yes, GIF. Okay? GIF. Close your eyes if you got a dumb brain like I did 7 years ago. Yes, I'm kind of giving you a trigger warning here. Freedom, baby. Now come on, how can you not love this little guy? The reason this was a bit of a breakthrough is that this was the first video of a spider I had willingly watched with no real reaction in years. Certainly, it's not a type of spider that would have bothered me that much in the first place, but it was a video, and I was sitting there watching and laughing at it. And not only that, thinking it was cute. At that point, I decided, you know what, I should really try to find some pictures of spiders that don't bother me that much and get really used to them and accustom myself to them so that they don't bother me anymore, and then I can sort of work my way up step by step. The problem with doing that was if I just went to Google and searched for spiders, I would get all kinds of stuff that would be far too intense for me at the time. But fortunately, around that time I had met Ezet, and we were pretty open with each other about things, so she knew about this problem, and I just got her to start sending pictures that I didn't think would bother me that much. Oddly, the stuff we started with was tarantulas. For some reason, tarantulas have never bothered me that much. You would think they'd be right near the top of the list of like worst fears of an arachnophobe, but no, the weird thing is they're too big and too fat. I mean, they did bother me to an extent for sure, but not nearly as much as the kind of spiders I had living on Vancouver Island. Those were the worst nightmare, probably because those are the ones I'd grown up with. So I started looking at pictures of tarantulas, and like I said, you know, the angle of the picture, the leg placement, all that kind of stuff for some reason mattered. So she would get pictures of tarantulas taken from the side, like crunched up, and basically what I would do was just put them on a monitor beside me, not the main monitor. I wouldn't stare at them, I wouldn't focus intensely on them, because I think that made me feel like they were too important. I felt like assigning them any kind of real importance had too much in common with obsession, which really was the problem in the first place, and I felt like giving them a place of importance might just make the problem worse. The fact is, in my life, these little animals just are not that important. Not in any real terms, it was just purely that I thought about them too much, and not in a useful way. And I had to kind of make myself see them as unimportant, something that's not directly in my field of view. It's just off to the side, whatever, maybe I'll glance over there occasionally. And when I did glance over, what I would do is clinically observe them, like as if I was studying the anatomy of just any other animal, or a skeleton or something. This is probably something that varies a lot based on kind of the personality of the person who's doing this, but with me, I'm the kind of person that if I understand something, it's a lot more comfortable. So the legs, for example, were something that really bothered me, so I would look at those leg joints and see how they worked. I would really study how they actually stood, how they were distributing their weight, things like that. Not in any sort of scientific terms, but just sort of trying to casually comprehend the thing. Because I think part of my problem was that somehow I had elevated them from just being simple animals like any other animal into some sort of almost mythological entity. Like there was everything in the world that was all physical and normal, and then there were spiders that were just bundles of terror. Obviously, intellectually, I knew better, but it felt that way. And what I had to do was bring them back down to reality by getting my subconscious mind to believe that, no, just like any other animal, they're just a structure of parts, like a lobster. And that was also why at the same time I would look at things like crabs. Spidery-looking things that in fact didn't bother me at all, but things that I could compare. I could directly compare spiders to crabs, and internalize the fact that a spider and a crab really are not that different, and I'll eat a friggin' crab. lab. If I started to feel any sort of unease, I carefully focused on not looking away quickly, not allowing myself to have any of those physical fear reactions. And I don't mean the involuntary ones, I mean the ones that I could control in some way. Quickly looking away, quickly closing the window, giving that stupid little creature the power to make me have a sudden movement. I made sure that I didn't do any of that. I could look away, but slowly, like I would look away from something I was just bored of. And then in a couple minutes, maybe look back. And whenever I did, I would try my best to always ask questions about it. To ask myself something about the structure of the animal, about its relationship to other animals. And over time, even if I started to feel that dread creeping in, I'd just look at some feature and coldly describe it to myself. This probably all sounds really weird, and that's because it is. The human brain, unfortunately, is really weird, and if it's allowed to get out of control, this is what happens. Now, all of this was done before my daughter baby Elzebub came along, but throughout a decent amount of this process, Izet was pregnant, and that was the thing that kept me from ever allowing myself to backslide on this issue. Because I don't exactly know where my issue with spiders came from. There's no one single incident or clear cause, it's just something that gradually got worse over time. But what I was worried about was that my daughter would see me flip to a page in a book and slam it shut because it made me jump so hard, or back 20 feet away when I saw a spider out on the street, or close my eyes when I saw a spider in a nature documentary. And because I know that kids take so many cues about what to be afraid of or not to be afraid of from their parents, I was very worried that I would end up giving her the same problem. And as Theophilus says, it is a torment. And that's just not something I wanted to do to my daughter purely because I couldn't deal with my own shit. That would be completely unacceptable to me. And beyond any issue of my own quality of life, that is what has kept me working on this issue the most. And by the way, this is largely why I have such a major issue with the doctrine of hell, specifically the fact of it being used to scare people into obedience, because I hear these stories from viewers who come to me and tell me about these nightmares they have, about how they stopped believing so long ago and they still wake up with nightmares about hell. They don't believe it exists, and yet they're still terrified of it. That's an irrational fear if I ever heard one. And the fact that people try to foster that kind of fear in other people, even their own kids, is just disgusting to me. Sorry for the random tangent. Anyway, so at this point, after several years of just occasionally, not often, but just occasionally going through a little bit of discomfort and just trying to be coldly analytical about the thing, I am at the point where I can go to Google and search for spiders and nothing's gonna bother me. At least probably not too far beyond what it would bother anyone who's not arachnophobic. I can look at field guides about bugs with my daughter and show her the pictures of the spiders just as easily as anything else, and she seems just fine with them so far, which I think is partially because I don't have a reaction to them. Now that we're in the house, I encounter quite a few spiders in the yard, and yeah, I don't really want them crawling all over me, but usually all they do is run away from me and hide. And fine, whatever, go hide. So I've managed, with a bit of help from Izet, to get through this issue, at least to a satisfactory degree. Maybe I'm slightly more invested in keeping them out of my house than most people would be. I am more bothered by seeing them in my house than I would like to be. There's room for improvement. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. It kind of feels like being a recovering drug addict or something though, where I feel like if I let it slip, I might let it consume me again, and I have to be careful not to do that. But it's a dramatic improvement in my quality of life. And believe me, I don't say any of this for any sort of congratulations. I've got all the reward I need just having it dealt with. All I'm trying to do is present a sort of odd thing to you for the interest of whoever's interested. Now, if you're in the same situation, will any of this work for you? I have no idea. That's your business. You're gonna have to figure out how your broke-ass brain works, and figure out how to navigate through all the screwiness. I'm not gonna even try to tell anyone else what's gonna work for them. But I would encourage you, if you have a similar issue to this about spiders or anything else, and if it is affecting your quality of life, to think about what you could do so that in a year from now, maybe the problem's just a tiny little bit less bad. Maybe you consider it just that tiny little bit less important. Maybe you think about it or dream about it just that tiny little bit less. Even the tiniest bit of improvement opens the door to more improvement. I think that if you have that sort of issue, you can end it, or at least reduce it. Maybe on your own, maybe with help from your friends and family, or maybe you need to go to a therapist. I don't know. Maybe even Theophilus' idea, which seems to be God, will work for you. I don't know. I have pretty severe doubts, but I guess you never know. So I guess that's all I have to say. I really didn't need to do this as a response video, but I guess I'm just used to doing things as responses. I guess it just makes me feel like I have some sort of a sensible starting point. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I guess we're done. So if you like the video, subscribe, give it a like. If you want early access to videos, sign up to my email list at list.logicked.com. If you want even earlier access to videos or exclusive videos, please do consider supporting my work at Patreon or Subscribestar. This channel is supported by the viewers, and I really appreciate the people who do support. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that wasn't too weird. We got through it. Alright, no problem. See you next time.
How you overcome a phobia? You overcome a phobia with the word of God.